Oh, wake up, rethink the status quo. When you get your money right, then you're the one who runs your life. Come build a wealthy spirit with Sammy and Michelle.
Oh my gosh, Sammy, the worst thing happened to me.
Tell me.
For those who don't know, Twitter was renamed to X. This is important to the story. Twitter.com officially moved to only X.com. This is what happened to me. All of a sudden, all my extensions stopped working. I logged on to Twitter. I usually can't see the Explore page. I can't see trending topics. But like 1,000 people ran into my room in the morning unannounced. I was attacked by everything going on in the world. All of a sudden, the politics, the celebrity gossip, some random stuff. I don't even know what's going on. Like, why would cabbage be trending? I don't know. But all of a sudden, I was like, holy crap, the world is terrible. There's all this negativity. I was like, how do people sit in this all day? And it made me think it's so important to be cognizant of not only the 5 people you surround yourself with, but also those parasocial relationships, those people you surround yourself with online.
I love this concept of the 5 people we surround ourselves with. And I think I even more love the parasocial 5 people we surround ourselves with. Because the media we take in plays such a big role in how we think and our general mood. And I think it's so important to be careful about that.
Let's get into it. But first, we really wanted to highlight some podcast and interesting pieces of writing that we've been consuming. And one that sticks out is the Hyperfocus video podcast. Harris, that we did an interview with for this podcast, has launched Hyperfocus. It's focused on not only topics that we're really interested in, like personal development. She's actually the one that introduced us to the book Not Nice, which we covered a couple of episodes ago. Also, she is starting to interview different people to see what type of things that they're hyper-focused on. I really love her videos. I'm always really inspired and have different takeaways. She's so personable. She shares about her own childhood and how that shaped her life. We're going to include it in our show notes, and we highly recommend you check it out. Hyperfocus, HYPR. Check it out.
Now back to today's topic, the 5 parasocial people you surround yourself with.
Longtime listeners of this podcast might know that Sammy and I love the quote, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with," by Jim Rohn. This resonates with me so much because I often stop and think, who are the people in my life and what are the influences that they're having on me? It makes a lot of sense when you think about it. The 5 people you surround yourself with, they often influence what you read, what you eat, where you go out at night, what you think. And so we love that idea, but we've been talking about recently also the 5 parasocial people you surround yourself with. Parasocial being a term that typically means the information we're consuming, because so much of it comes from the internet, audiobooks, podcasts, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So an exercise Sammy and I wanted to run through, and one that we recommend, is who are you listening to online? What is the information that you are consuming? And how can you be a little bit more cognizant about the 5 parasocial people you're surrounding yourself with?
When you say parasocial, people might think these are fake relationships, but truly the media we consume does affect us, and it doesn't have to be negative. Of course, we don't want to be addicted to screens or phones or things like that, but maybe we're listening to podcasts or audiobooks, long-form media that genuinely give us information. We want to be curating what we listen to. When I think about this, I think about something I've been listening to lately, which is Byron Katie.
Byron Katie had so much of an influence that we talked about her work on a podcast a couple episodes ago, one which a lot of you guys loved, by the way.
Whenever I listen to her podcast, I always get personal insights for myself on things that I'm going through. For example, she was talking to this woman during this one episode about this woman's trauma, and Byron Katie said, think to the moment in your childhood where you experienced a deep trauma. Visualize the worst scene or scenario of that trauma and think about what you were thinking in your head. It doesn't have to be one of those classic big T traumas. It can be whatever a trauma was for you. And for me, I remember thinking I should be doing something. And I realized from this exercise that my way of compensating for I should be doing something has been overworking or being a workaholic and thinking that I can help so many other people, using that to kind of fulfill this underlying need or question or desire that I had when I was younger. And that has played out for a long time. Now I'm actually coming out of that. I'm seeing why I was working so much, and I'm able to now genuinely put myself first because I've let go and I've learned to really understand and forgive myself for what I was thinking in the past.
There's two really great things about that, Sammy. One, that it had an unlock for you. You had a really positive experience with Byron Katie, who you do not know, but you were able to get her insights from her podcast. The second thing is about the influence. You actually brought up this specific quote in a meetup we were in yesterday. And I know it really resonated with me when you shared that. So you see how this influence of somebody in your life is trickling down to other parts of your life as well. And in this case, it seems really positive.
I'm glad you found it useful.
For me, I recently was running through this exercise in a different way. I wanted to think about what type of people really inspire me online and also who I want to emulate. And it might come as a surprise, but I've been listening to the My First Million podcast, and the host, Sean Puri, really stuck out to me as somebody that is aligned with a lot of things that I want to do. He's very funny, he's very business-minded, and I thought to myself, I should actually follow a little bit more of his interviews and follow more of his work so I can start to look and see how he's showing up online, what type of ideas that he has, and maybe I can apply them to myself. One that he had that I really liked is being a billionaire is a stupid goal. He tweeted that, but he also spoke about it on an interview. And he talks about how billionaires are always willing to give away their money, which shows that it's not worth a lot. But he's like, they don't give away their health. They don't give away their time. So that shows that different things are important. And he specifically highlighted, I want to look at my life and think what's going to be the most fun. And I love that. And I really reframed how I'm approaching things by thinking, okay, cool. How can I approach my work? How can I approach my creative writing and this podcast and think, what is the most fun? But once again, Sean Puri had such a big influence. And all of a sudden, I'm recommending his podcast, his interviews. He did an interview with David Perel for How I Write, and I've been sending it to everybody because I thought it had so many great nuggets that I could share.
One of my 5 people in real life, you, have been sharing this information with me, and I've honestly been inspired too. I like that idea that you have of picking someone you want to be like and following them. You can see their thought processes and how they think and become more like them.
You can now get into the heads of people that are otherwise unattainable. Sean lives in a different state. We don't know each other at all, but I can actually get in his head because he's willing to deconstruct it for me. Unfortunately, Sammy, there are also bad examples.
There are bad examples. And for me, when I was thinking about my parasocial relationships, I went to all my media platforms. For me, that's like podcasts. I do watch YouTube videos. And I was looking at the YouTube recommendations to see what are my parasocial relationships. And I found some things I didn't like. Specifically, there's some content on the dark feminine, the divine feminine, astrology content. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I do find these things insightful, or I can relate to them, or I can apply it to my life. But a lot of the content that comes from there can be really, I don't know, I want to say trashy, but I don't know what the word I want to use is.
This explains, Sammy, why you've recently been walking around the house looking like Morticia Adams, dark feminine queen.
Yes, maybe I've gone too far, and a lot of the information can be a little bit almost manipulative or trying to control people's minds. And I like the useful part, and I don't like when it gets too into that stuff because I just find that to have maybe a not so great intention. And I think I've gotten what I need from this content, and I'm ready to now back away from it because the utility is gone. Looking through my YouTube feed helped me figure out that that is not what I want anymore.
That's so important, Sammy, because with these algorithms that are recommendation based, a lot of times you can find one video that you like or one piece of information that you enjoy, But then you are started to being feed every single person who's talked about this topic. Maybe you don't respect all those people. Maybe you don't know anything about their background. This is why I think media like Instagram and TikTok, things that are short form that you're not really controlling who you're hearing from, can be so toxic, because it's not to say that there isn't one good piece of information. If it ends up putting you down a rabbit hole that you didn't even yourself choose to go down, that's when you have to be really careful, because all of a sudden you are out of control with your parasocial people that you surround yourself with.
Completely agree, Michelle.
Sammy, I wish I could say that I had no bad examples. I am such a sucker for celebrity gossips. I've gone down really bad rabbit holes before looking at the secret celebrity gossip and blinds, and it made me a really toxic person. All of a sudden...
I'm sorry, what did you say, blinds?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to get into it because I don't want to point people in that direction, but essentially, you can really get into celebrity gossip, which is where people share the secret information that they're hearing, and they have ways of like pretending like it's validated, but all of a sudden you're walking around the world and someone mentions Selena Gomez and you're like, Selena Gomez is faking everything in her life. You don't even know. And once I recognized it at myself, like this was just something I told myself I was doing for fun. Like, oh yeah, I know this is just cotton candy information. I just enjoy celebrity gossip. But what I realized was you consume that much negativity, you become a negative person. You become a little bit of a crazy person. you become a little bit of a delulu person. And I'm happy that I eventually recognized, honestly, because people thought I was weird, that was not good for me. But there are good examples, and 100% Sammy, for you it's the dark feminine. For me, it's following rap beefs and doing a little bit too much research on what's going on in those worlds.
Takeaways.
Takeaways for this episode. I recommend everybody write down their top 5 parasocial relationships. First, we're not talking about the ones you desire. First, start with the ones that are really your top 5 parasocial relationships. And to be truly honest with yourself, go to the platforms that you use. If it's YouTube or your podcast player or Spotify or social media like Instagram, Facebook, go to those platforms and see what is recommended for you. It may sometimes be unfortunate. Really get a clear idea of who those actual 5 parasocial relationships are.
Exactly. No judgment. Pull up the history for each of those and take a look. Also, be careful. When Sammy and I was doing this, we did find that it was easy to fall back into those black holes. But it is super helpful because then you realize, I don't need to know everybody Cardi B is beefing with. I just want to know when her album is coming out.
Then write down the 5 parasocial relationships that you do want to have. Who do you want to be? What kind of podcast feeds are positive for you? I did this for myself, and I found that I still want Byron Katie to be number 1 right now because I'm constantly inspired by that. I love Tony Robbins, Eckhart Tolle. I'm like, I need to listen to more of that. I like the audiobooks that I listen to. Right now I'm listening to Not Nice and Map of Consciousness. Both of those are constantly inspiring me in a positive way. And one that I added is the Oprah podcast because
I was thinking Oprah too, Sam.
Yes, every time I listen, I'm always inspired. For some reason, sometimes I am like reluctant to listen, maybe because the ads or something like that, they're very loud. But the information in the podcast always inspires me. So I added that to my ideal 5 list as well.
If you are like me and your Twitter feed just got insane, find the things that you can block that info. If that means deleting the site altogether, I definitely encourage you to do so because there's a lot of toxic stuff out there. And if you can avoid it, you can avoid it. But sometimes it's also just getting a Chrome extension that properly works and can get rid of, say, the Explore feed or the trending feed or the recommendation feed. Those are putting relationships and people in front of you that you didn't even seek out yourself.
I have something extreme that I'm about to say.
Oh, okay.
I was previously using Facebook groups for various things, like what's going on in Charleston as far as events or salsa events in town. And to be honest, I would say it's infrequent that I've actually followed through with actually doing any of those things. So the utility of groups has decreased, but the chance that I will get on Facebook and use Facebook videos is still high. So I was thinking about this while we were outlining the podcast, and I am going to somehow make my Facebook dormant. I don't know exactly all the options there, but I decided that's what I'm going to do.
We'll work on that together, Sam. I love that intention.
Community time!
Before we say goodbye, it's our community time. And we have gotten so many great shout outs from all of you. We love it. buildawealthyspirit.com. Send us an email, leave us a comment. We love hearing from you guys. First, Greg sent us the kindest fanboy email, which he called it. And it was amazing because he highlighted different things he's learned from this podcast. Some topics, Sammy, that we haven't talked about in a while, and I kind of want to dig back into because it was such a great reminder of things that I love. He talked about ACT.
Action changes things.
He said it's one of his regular mantras now, which actually a few people have told me. I think that'd be a great one to circle back to because I still quote that to people. He loved the idea of following your curiosities, commented how I'm joining groups like the Pathless Path, Rite of Passage, Small Bets Community, the idea of focusing on 3 to 4 projects at a time, and also just start. He loved that Sammy just quickly published our first episode. That story is one that I love too, Sammy. And we love that email, Greg. Thank you so much.
Yes, I was very inspired by Greg's email. It just renewed my passion for the podcast again because seeing that other people are resonating with what we're talking about and that they use it in their life and have similar stories to us. For example, Greg is living in the Philippines, but he grew up in the United Kingdom, a second-generation immigrant like us. Hearing those stories just really brings home why we have this podcast in general.
100%, Sammy. I agree. Comments like that. Masha has also been emailing us some really great feedback about our podcast. She also made up a really great point that I would love to dig into, maybe find someone to talk to about this. She asked after our sabbaticals versus fire episode, how do entrepreneurs take sabbaticals? And I think that's a great question because I myself know that I can hit burnout and getting breaks is still so important, even when you're doing your own thing.
Harris and Paul messaged us that they really enjoyed our Law of Attraction episode. And big thanks to them because they're the ones who introduced us to Chris, who leads the Law of Attraction group in Charleston.
And finally, Vinamrata loved the episode on Byron Katie. I said it earlier, but we received really positive feedback about the Byron Katie episode, which, again, to your point, Sammy, it's so amazing to hear that because we have been so influenced by her work, and we love when you guys share that inspired takeaways on your end as well. Build a Wealthy Spirit. Let us know if there's something that resonates with you. We'd love to hear from you guys.
And most importantly, be sure to join us next time as we put down the rulebook and we rethink the status quo.